Let's,
No.
oh, you're live now. You're good. Sorry.
We are live?
Yeah.
We'll call the meeting back to order. Dan McDougal, you wanna come on up? Sure. We're here for a bit of an update on where we are with.
Yeah, and I can start off if you'd like.
Yeah.
Just as a summary. So May 16th, Church Memorial Park board members presented to council, and they made 3 requests. One is to fund the funding to cover the required roof repairs, and we can go over what those 3 options were, those 3 quotes that they provided to us.
Is that the 1.5 million?
There was 3 figures in there. It was 400,000 to do 3, I think it was 3 of the beams in the curling rink was 400,000, and then that would still require monitoring of the remaining beams and monitoring for the arena, I believe. And then there was an option for $800,000, which would do all of the work in the curling rink side, and we would still be required, there would still be a requirement for monitoring on the rink side, I think is what that option was. And then there was a 1.5 million option to do all of the work on the roof and get all of the repairs done. I do have some more information, and Dan can speak to some of that as well on the change that has changed since we met. But I wanted to first go over the request for staff support to manage the roof repair project. And then there was also a request from the board. The 3rd request was for long-term viability planning for capital and operating.
Yeah.
So the one item that I think we would start with is the request to provide in-house capacity or in-house staff or expertise to take on the required project management side of things. And so we've taken a look at that. We've taken a look at our capacity, and I think with our current capital program, so we have a $32 million capital program this year. It's the biggest one we've seen. We just don't have the capacity to do that in-house. And then we've also looked at the ability for us to sort of manage and procure that, and with our current procurement policies, and what we would be required to do in order to even hire a 3rd-party consultant to do that, we don't believe that it would meet their timelines, because they wanted to have this project done and underway so that they could have start the curling season in August. And so what we would be required to do from a procurement perspective just would not be able to meet those timelines. So staff feel that probably if council is interested in that, the best option would be to provide funding for them to do that themselves, to hire a 3rd party and do that. So that's one thing. And then the second request, I think, and this is where Dan can probably provide a little bit more context around it, is that the $1.5 million that was initially provided as an estimate to do the roof repairs was provided to Church Memorial Park in February by the wood consultants or wood roofing consultants. I can't remember their name, but they have since that time done some further inspections in response to some of the later alarms that were received, and so they are now coming forward and saying that the tension rods also need to be repaired, and so that work, adding that work in there, would take the cost right now up to $1.955 million, I believe it was, Dan. And so it's not 1.5 million, it's closer to 2, and that's the before tax portion of it. And then what we would look at in terms of if you were to consider funding for project management, we usually budget about 5% for project management of the costs. So, yeah, and so some of that information we just found out yesterday, and the board just found out yesterday about the change in the quote yesterday or the day before. So we wanted to give you that update just for your consideration. I know that that's a lot of information to take in, and it might be that you might want to consider having another meeting to discuss that, but they did ask that we make that decision before June 1st, and so in order to do that, we were trying to get back here today, but you may want to may want to consider having another meeting, and we may not be able to make that deadline. Yeah.
So
The good news is that
the update, though it's not, I know that the study is going to be presented here. We're using council chambers on June 6th. The feasibility study is complete, so we'll be presenting.
I think we got a copy of it yesterday, didn't we?
Well, so we have a draft copy that we haven't reviewed yet and hasn't been made public yet.
Right.
So the consultant is doing a presentation. They're using council chambers to do that on the 6th. Most of our council members will be away when that happens, so we won't be able to.
So,
Go ahead.
okay, thank you. So, just to comment on that first one, another question. So, the presentation on the 6th, is that open to the public?
I'm not, I think it is, but I'm not sure.
Is that the
presentation on the
I
6th?
think it would be.
There's an invitation being sent out, so I don't know that it's public. I think there's invitations to council and the board and I believe the province, but it's coming from the board, so I'm not sure. We would have to double check. I don't know that it's public.
What time on the 6th? I'll be there.
The invitation, I haven't seen the invitation.
If there's an invitation, I'll attend.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. There's three of us that aren't going to Calgary, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my next question would be around, and I apologize if I got it and didn't look at it in depth. When the group was here on the day, there was a letter that was received by Amanda, I think, from the curling club. And I was really interested in that because I'd like to know what the numbers are and where, you know, the residents that I'm representing throughout the entire municipality. I get the economic impact and the fact that it's it's not really a recreational facility because it's only skating and curling, but it's a facility for skating and curling. So I get the economic impact. Tournaments, gas stations, restaurants, I get that. But my residents are asking me to find out more specifics on the ages, because we certainly support all ages from youth to seniors, and I assume that letter, that correspondence might have captured that, because I did ask that the day that we were here during the presentation. I said I was curious on that. So the users of the curling club piece, right? Yeah, I did mention that day.
How many people use it?
Yeah, how many people use it, what are the ages, where are they coming from, if they're, you know, and that's what my taxpayers are asking me. Thank you.
Yes, they should.
Did we get that, did that letter come around to us, and I apologize?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, because she got a paper copy of some sort that the curling club had presented just that day, so I don't know what was in that letter. Did she provide that letter?
Pam was in here that day,
We'll
but
look for it if we have it.
Okay, yeah, that's okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Stella,
Yeah, I know that I asked somebody on the board, and they got back to me about if we, when it was 1.2 million, if they did the work, that would the monitoring be still, and it said no, they would, so the cost of the monitoring would disappear. But like you say, where it's almost double, it's quite an increase. I think we need to, actually I'm gonna, if they send an invitation, I'm gonna come down. It's June the
6th, that's 5.
Next Thursday.
at 5 o'clock. If I'm alive and breathing, I'll be here.
okay, Dan.
So the CAO covered most of the main points, so thank you very much for that, Tara. A couple of just other bits of information that would be useful for council. If the full roof restoration, if the rafters in both the hockey rink and the curling rink were to be repaired this summer, they're estimating about 100 days work. So our intention is to have hockey start by September 27th. So time is of the essence for a decision on any work this summer, particularly if it's both sides. I just wanted to make sure it's crystal clear that the estimate is for repair of the rafters and the tension rods associated with the rafters. It's not repair to additional roof systems like purlins and some other work that has been identified in previous assessments of the facility. So it's just the rafter, the main structural system, and the Wood Research is saying the monitoring system could be removed if that work was done to the rafters and the tension rod. So that cost would no longer be something. But there you will likely see in a final draft of the feasibility study that there would be some additional roof work, as there always is, I suppose, to buildings. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Was there a time for how long this, like a 5-year extension to the roof labor, or 10-year extension?
Like I know Bill has sent in some.
I think it said 50 years if all of the work was done, only on the roof itself. That doesn't mean they didn't make any comment on the building or the footings or anything. It was on the roof itself.
So these are just the rafters, so there would be prior to any,
Just the two things.
right, yeah.
And to put it into perspective, the monitoring, you have a price for that?
Last year it was $20,000 a month. We monitored only during the ice season, so we spent about $60,000 on monitoring, plus an additional 10 for that 1-day site inspection and investigation. That was in March sometime. That's when the tension rod issue really rose to the surface, and that was after we got our February quote, which is the number we used in our presentation to council. So Amanda, Bill, and I met with by Zoom with Wood Research last night, and we wanted one of us to attend here today to make sure there was no feeling that we misrepresented the numbers. We want you to have the information you need in order to make a decision.
So just a question with the rest of the facility, right? Like, because I don't know, it's been a while since I've been in the building, but the rest of the facility, so the roof is one thing, but what about, I don't know, the foundation, the bleachers, they're called bleachers, the changing rooms.
What makes the ice itself?
Yeah, everything that makes that a facility.
I guess what I would ask is, really rid planks,
Yeah.
big rid planks other than what we're facing right
Yeah.
now. Any big cost foreseen in the next 2 to 3 years?
The feasibility study may show that. I mean, you've seen a draft.
We'll get it
going to help us.
Yes.
We haven't seen it.
Okay.
We got it yesterday morning and we haven't had a chance to review it yet, so.
None of us have walked.
None of us have looked at it yet.
Andre?
I think that this conversation was eventually going to happen regardless. What bothers me about it is we aren't able to be thoughtful about the impact because there's this huge rush been placed on us. Like, if we don't do this, then we jeopardize the use of the facility for the next year. And further to that, like, the issues that are being encountered in the big roof rafters, so these great big glue laminated beams coming up that are being restrained at the bottom with these tie rods. That's all based on, all that work, all that concern is predicated on this idea that it was originally designed with this sort of windswept load, windswept snow methodology for like designing, like predicting what the load would be on the building, and that's wasn't adequate probably, and through years of basically those beams being overloaded and age and moisture, now they're failing. And Wood Research have looked at the glue lams. They think they can fix them. But the glue lams and all that system form part of like a foundation, and like those loads would also be higher on other components of the building. I don't know if those areas have also been examined, you know, if we're placing 60 or 100% more load on the foundations, you know, what's the condition of those? I don't know, you know, we could put $2 million into this and find that we have a foundation we have to upgrade, and you know, and it just cascades into more work because we haven't been thoughtful about the approach. We're just sort of reacting, and that I find that very stressful as a decision maker, because you know, if it works, then it's like great. Phew, I'm glad that's all done. But if it cascades into more problems as we continue to track this overload, age issue deeper into the building, then we look really silly for not taking time and being thoughtful. And you know, all of us have been in that situation with anything where, you know, anything like your automobile where something breaks and you're not thoughtful about it and you just go and get it fixed, and then you realize that there's so many other issues you would have been better off buying a new one. So I haven't really said anything. I said things, but I don't have any opinion yet. It just, I have a concern, I guess, that we're not really, I don't feel like we have a fulsome idea of really where this could go, even though we have better information than we had maybe 3 weeks ago. But I'm concerned about making a rash decision in the next few days.
I know, and the difficulty is, if it's not fixed, the curling rink won't open this season.
And maybe it won't.
Yes, I guess, and like, I haven't seen the feasibility study, I haven't seen what the public has had to say, and do you want a new rink, do you want to fix this one, what do you want in any of it, and all that kind of stuff. I haven't seen that. Like, I know that the rink is important, and I don't mind spending $2 million if I know that we're keeping it and we're going to use it. But if we're only going to keep it for 2 years, and then I have to come up with $30 million to build a new one, I don't know whether it's a wise use of my $2 million.
You know? Normally, if we were going to build a new one, we would have partners, and you know,
who's paying for it?
We don't have any opportunity with this $2 million ask to even talk to anybody about if they can help out or anything. Like, it's not strictly about money, but it's
just
it really looks reactionary. This is a whatever. I mean, we had this is not something that just happened. This has been ongoing for 20 years, and suddenly it's like the ask is like, bang, you gotta deal with it, and it's a very unfair position to put us in, I feel like.
And I know, was the scope of the feasibility study have anything to do with other than the roof? Do you know that, or?
It will cover, I think, all the major
Like,
components.
you know, where they looked at the ice plant, the foundation? Well, that's important to look at, I'd say.
Yeah, I want to see the feasibility study.
Yeah,
I want to see that, and I want to see what the public consultation had to say.
What about funding partners? I mean, normally the problems would be a partner in something like this, wouldn't it? Certainly there will be if we have to go ahead and build a new one.
Yeah, but the time frame for
I know.
it's just crazy. It's not possible.
But the thing is, for a new build, I mean, I would think it would be at least 5 years out. I can't imagine, even if it contemplated a new build, that you get a new building for under 5 to 7 years. So what's going to happen in the interim? Do we close this facility down? I mean, that would have a major impact. And once you lose user groups, it's very difficult to get them back. I mean, they have the opportunity. Well, if we didn't have a rink, they would have to say, well, you're either going to Tantallon or Luna River Bridgewater. Because
Change it first, and then.
Thank you. Dan, thanks for being here today. I appreciate everyone's comments, and I'm just going to indicate that what Alan had captured there, I'm full on board with in terms of not adverse to spending this money, but we need to know 5 years out or 2 years out what that's going to mean, and to be respectful of what our public, what our residents would like to see in a recreation facility in terms of potential other areas of recreation, and would that equate to a new rec facility or not, and all the above. So, yeah, I'm in support of the discussion that we've had, but it's around a longer term kind of impact for me. So I'm gonna listen with an open mind and open ears next Thursday evening when it comes in. Yeah, thank you.
Floyd?
Yeah, I just think that we're in a position today that we can't make any decision until we hear all that information from that study. I think we need to know how many people are using the rink and what long-term effect or short-term effect will it have. I don't see us making a decision anytime the next, probably before our next council meeting, 3 weeks at the earliest, because we need to get a report back on that.
Well, even what we got yesterday, I mean, none of us have seen it, even the staff haven't seen
So
it.
that will answer a lot of the things we're asking here, I think, and we need that information to move forward. How long would it take to build a new rink is important. To Sharon's point, what would we do if it takes 7 years?
Yeah.
Do we invest $2 million?
Yes.
But we need to find out something.
Well, the 2 million get us the time frame.
Well, I just think we need way more information before we can sit as a group and have that discussion. Way more.
I'd be, just if I could, when the meeting on the 6th, I mean, most council will be away, but is there gonna be a recording of the meeting? I mean.
It's not our meeting, so.
Okay, that's what I'd like
Just
to.
using our building.
Yeah, so I think that would be something that the rest of the council would want to see, other than just the study. Would you agree, Floyd? Would you like to be part of that, or?
Well, maybe it's possible, because we're all going away, that we could zoom into the meeting.
Yeah,
Well,
that's true.
They gotta realize there's a 4 or 5 hour time frame difference.
It's earlier for you guys.
3 hours.
Well, 5 o'clock.
Well, I think it's
That'd be 2
important
o'clock.
that the council should be there in some way.
I'm not even taking a side bit, but I'm not. Well, just because you can only carry so much down yourself, so the phone.
I just know I need a lot more information, and if after we come back, I'm fine with that. But I need the information from the report and all that. I think it would be negligent if we try to make a decision without all that.
Numbers of people using it, all that would be different.
So where would the $2 million come from?
That we haven't.
We haven't decided.
Yeah,
Yes. So we did take a look at it because council did ask us to take a look at that. So there's a number of, we could take general reserve, we could use the community development, they're all the wind revenue, right? So economic development reserve.
What about the home
Economic
trust?
development.
No, the Home Trust doesn't have it. Anyway.
Yeah, hey, I'm just asking.
No, but it's not that we don't have the cash, we could, but then you don't have it for anything else either, that's all.
Well, we have a lot of stuff going on.
Yes, Dave.
I just wanted to comment and recognize Councillor Vino's comment about it, such short notice and it being unfair. And I would say that up until March, when we had those alarm conditions, the board was thinking that we'd be multiple years of phased improvements, a rafter to a year, and it was when we received the report in March that with language that it may not be safe to use that space, that things have changed for the board. I would also say that the board also feels, when we look at how the facility has, there's been many boards, I spoke about that last time, about, the community has that legacy of the original board that created and established that facility, and for many decades, volunteers have run that facility. And, when we look at our financial statements and we see that we really don't have a active funding partner to cover such core infrastructure, that the board is also feeling like we've been placed in this spot that we're constantly putting a cap out to try to put patches on a facility. So we would agree that it's really difficult for a council to make a decision, and that it is limited time for you to make a decision. Our focus is on uninterrupted service, in that facility, uninterrupted programming's community safety for both sides of the facility. And we know that a feasibility study, at some point maybe a decision is made for new construction, and Councillor Church spoke about how we don't see that being in 2 years' time. We see it in a number of years. And so that's why we brought it to you in such short notice. So we understand and would concur that it is a challenging decision, but events created it.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what to do next. Well, I need to see those documents.
So we would need to get a final report. And so we could provide, so the councillors who can attend the meeting next week and get the invite once it comes out, we'll have staff there and they can report back on the meeting, and if it's possible, we'll get copies of the slides. But then I think we need to turn our minds to, do you want to put it on an agenda for the 20th and make a decision, or do you need a separate meeting with a little bit more wholesome discussion outside of a council meeting? So we're just looking for.
Well, it's a big discussion, let's put it that way.
I think we need a discussion before that meeting.
And I think the board as well, once you have the feasibility study and really look into it, the board will have some decisions as well. I mean, it's just not council's decision.
Yeah.
I mean, the board is ultimately, you may look at it and think, well, maybe it is, based on the study, a different direction. I don't know what that would be, but the board is, is a big part of this, I think. I mean, I know the money comes from here, but I think the board needs a lot of discussion amongst themselves after the feasibility study.
Has the Pew Foundation been approached?
Not, so we were, yes. We just recently received 4-year funding envelope from the Pew Foundation. It's the same amount that it has been for many years. And it is my understanding that there's not an opportunity for an additional application to be submitted to the Pew Foundation. So our funding is, that they have committed is the funding that they would commit to the facility.
That place they funded.
That's my understanding of yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the long and the short of it,
You're not going to get an answer today.
no, you're not, because we have to take a look at those documents
And talk.
and talk. And we are leaving on Wednesday, most of us, so it isn't going to happen until we get back. It just can't. Do I want the rink to shut down or not open on time? No, but you can't spend $2 million without understanding what you're spending it on, what you're getting.
Maybe we could meet before the 20th, in an evening or something to.
Well, sure, we can try, yeah.
Are you back?
I don't know when I'm back. I'm due back on the 15th, but I mean, I gotta be honest with you, and this is a little bit selfish, but I'm in Alberta, and if the Edmonton Oilers are playing for the Stanley Cup, I'm hoping to stay and watch it. Well,
We'll be back.
Well, I thought that in the first period last night, but they ended up winning 5-2, so.
So Dan, does the board see a scenario
Yeah.
that the curling club would open, but the arena would open? Have they looked at that, and is that something of an option for this year?
Okay, the rink is shut the curling club down?
I just wondered if they looked at, if that would make any
It takes
sense.
an extra month to open it, and, I know that's not good, but
Yeah.
if it has to happen, it has to happen.
Again, we're not saying that number, concrete number.
I know what I can say is that the board has passed a motion that unless there's roof repairs done to the curling facility, it will not open.
Oh, no,
For the whole
For the
season.
season,
And
it's
that's
not
not-
delayed.
For the season.
Is it for this, would it be for the season or? would it be
Until roof repairs
Until it's done.
are completed and we have, expert advice that it's safe for use. So when it would be open is when the facility would be safe for use.
Absolutely.
And that's why we provided those 3 quotes.
Yep.
There are 3 rafters that were in alarm condition. I think it were 2 that were repaired last year. The qualitative advice we received is that there may be an issue created when you repair 2, that creates
Strain on
dynamic
something else,
on
yeah.
the other rafters. I'm not an expert on structure. And that's why we also identified the option for the entire curling facility, because then monitoring could be removed from the board's preference was for the entire facility to be safe and without monitoring, in part to reduce monitoring costs, but also for community confidence.
Oh, yeah.
Because this would be a topic that goes around the community, and folks would be thinking about the facility when they're in there participating.
I look at it, we're gonna use that rink and that facility for 10 more years.
One way or the other,
I
because
know
we wouldn't even
we-
possibly build a new one.
But if we're gonna just do it for a temporary thing for a couple of years, because the recommendation's gonna be to build a new one. Sort of.
And I think from a staff perspective, when we were looking at it and trying to pull together options, we were looking at, similar to what Councillor Church said, it's probably at least 5 years out before you have a new building. And so if you are interested and your objective is to maintain programming in that space for that duration, then you need to look at what are you willing to invest in that, right? And is it 1.5, is it 2, is it 2, what is that for, assuming that you're in there for at least another 5 years, maybe longer, but I think you're in there for at least another 5 years. Whether or not the feasibility comes back and says new building or not.
Yes, but let's say it comes back and says new building, and I don't want to be negative, because I know it sounds that way a little bit, because I really, really like the rink and want it to remain, and all that, but if we decide we're going down the road of building a new rink, and there's $30 million or so, council has to decide where that fits within their priorities and spending. They really do. I mean, this is the real world.
Yeah, good tap on that.
Yeah.
Does this mean I don't get my Pigaloop Road paved?
But those are choices we'll have to make. Is where are we spending our money?
Yes, and I mean, ultimately, if it was a $30 million facility, we would hope we'd get partners if that was.
Sure, it would, but.
However,
That's still a lot.
it may impact the tax rate because it may be a decision that we would have to
But council has to decide, is
put
that?
on.
How many people are using that?
Well, that's where the feasibility study is so important.
Yeah.
I mean, if they see the growth of, as whatever,
They gave us numbers of use at the last meeting.
Yeah, but they were really far-reaching. Like, I'm more interested in how many residents of this municipality. I think that it was a number of users, but I presume in that number it's from outside areas as well and all that stuff. So, it's our residents that are gonna have to pay. And, if there are, say, whatever, I'm throwing numbers, but if there were like 600 users, discrete users in our municipality, but it's a huge tax implication for the other, whatever, thousands. That's something we have to discuss, where our priorities lie.
Yeah, it's not a simple, not something you can decide today.
yeah, we can move the rink to New Roads, they get a rink out there.
They're gonna have
You're
to,
talking like Andre.
that's how I grew up, but.
Well, that's Andre. That's what I'm saying, Clubstone's his DNA or whatever. His essence is coming over this way.
Well, the first thing we have to do is take a look at those two documents that we have and have a debate and have a discussion and see what road we want to get at.
I agree.
Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah,
Sorry about no answer.
I don't know.
Don't worry. push the government. Thank you for your time.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, a motion to go in camera. We have some items there.
So moved.
Second.